This airplane runs iNav. And one of the things iNav is really good at is autonomous flight, specifically waypoint missions. I can go into iNav configurator, I can go to mission control, and I can set up a waypoint mission flying anywhere in the world that I want to set it up. But there's a problem. There's no way to actually test fly this waypoint mission and see what the airplane will actually do, except for just putting the airplane up in the air and flying it. And the thing is, when you're doing waypoint missions, most of the time, the reason you're doing waypoint missions is that you're not going to be there to see the airplane. So, like, not knowing what it's going to do is kind of a big deal. Wouldn't it be nice if we could download a simulator, and in that simulator, we could connect directly to our iNav flight controller. And then that flight controller could interface with the simulator. We'll just arm and start flying. And now we're in the air, and I'm just going to flip a switch, and it'll fly my waypoint mission in the simulator using real-world topographical data. That's called system in the loop or hardware in the loop, and it's a thing that iNav supports natively, and today I'm going to show you how to set it up. I'm Joshua Bardwell, and you're going to learn something today. The instructions for setting up SITL in iNav are here, and I'll give you links to all this stuff down in the video description below, as always. But I'm going to follow a specific procedure because, like, for example, SITL works with Real Flight Simulator, XPlane Simulator, and FL2Sim Simulator. We're going to be using the XPlane Simulator because Real Flight, as good of a sim as it is, doesn't let you load real global topographical data. And I think if you're going to do SITL related stuff, waypoints are one of the main reasons to do it. And if you're going to do waypoints, you want real topo data. So I just want to acknowledge that the things I'm going to show you are not the only way to do some of this, but rather than just confuse the matters with a whole bunch of extra information, I'm going to focus in on one particular way of doing it that I think produces a good result. So we are not going to be on this page, the generic SITL page. We are going to be on this page, which is the specific page for integrating iNav with XPlane. And the first thing we're going to need to do is download XPlane 11. XPlane 11 is not the latest version. XPlane 12 is actually the latest version. And as far as I know, everything that I'm about to show you also works on XPlane 12, which has some graphical enhancements and so forth. But I saw a couple guides that suggested that XPlane 11 was more stable, and XPlane 11 is also cheaper. I should say there is a free version of XPlane that you can download as a demo. I don't think you can do that through Steam, but if you just do download XPlane demo, you can find a demo download that lets you play for, I think it lets you play for up to an hour with XPlane 12. It may limit the regions and topo data you can get as well. But if you want to try this out without spending any money, you certainly can do that. I've gone ahead and I have purchased the full version of XPlane 11 to make this a little bit easier. Now, in order for this to work, you have to have a simulator-enabled iNav firmware. And the good news is that all modern versions of iNav from iNav 6 onward, we're currently on iNav 9, support this. So you don't need to do anything special with iNav, but you do need to be using iNav 6 or newer. So we're going to install XPlane, and I installed it using Steam. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to download this aircraft.zip file because the simulator needs to know about the airplane that you're flying. And if certain things don't line up correctly between iNav and the airplane model that you're flying in the sim, then it won't work. So we're going to download this file from this link. And again, it's down in the video description below. And here is the aircraft.zip. And I can just right click and extract that. And here is aircraft. And then I'm going to go into my Steam library, Steam Apps Common XPlane 11. I'm going to go into the aircraft folder. And here is extra aircraft. And I'm going to copy the whole NK_FPV Surfwing folder. I'm going to copy that over to the extra aircraft folder in the XPlane 11 folder. Basically, it's going to add this FPV Surfwing. It's a little FPV wing, and it's going to work. There are ways to get iNav SITL working with other aircraft in XPlane. So you could, like, you'd be flying an iNav flight controller, but it would actually be like a 747 or something. That's not something I've explored. I've just got this working with the basic FPV wing, and it's working great for me. Next, you're going to need a flight controller that can run iNav and a receiver soldered to that flight controller. You don't need any other sensors like GPS or whatever. The software will simulate those, but you do need a receiver so that you get your controller working, and you need a flight controller. I just took this airplane that I wasn't flying right now. I did a CLI dump so that I saved the config, and then I just reconfigured it for this purpose. You certainly could also just take a spare flight controller that you have laying around, flash iNav to it, solder a spare receiver to it, and just have that plugged in on the desk. Regardless, you do need a physical flight controller and a physical receiver, at least for the way that I'm doing it. You see, the way that I'm doing it is hardware in the loop. The iNav code is running on a flight controller. I do want you to know that there's another thing that can be done called software in the loop, SITL. And if you use SITL, then the flight controller iNav is running here on your PC. Like I can go here and I can connect to SITL, and that's just a simulated flight controller. Do I need to hit start? Start SITL. And then connect, and come on, buddy. Well, I did this previously. Now it's not working. I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong because I haven't explored SITL very much. When you do SITL, there are additional complexities that I didn't feel like diving into. Like you have to use TCP/IP and port numbers, and you have to connect your controller via a COM port. And I was like, well, I just have a spare flight controller. I'm just going to do it the HITL way. But I do want you to know that SITL is a thing that exists if you wanted to do what I'm about to do without a physical flight controller and receiver. Next, I need to configure the flight controller, and the main thing that I need to do is go into Mixer, and I need the platform type to be airplane, and the Mixer preset to be flying wing. XFlight can work with other types of aircraft, like a standard aircraft with a tail, but there are things that need to be done in the configuration to tell XFlight, hey, this aircraft has a tail, and that needs to interface with iNav in ways that I haven't explored. Basically, I'm going to do all my testing using this flying wing model, and then I'll translate that over to whatever I need to translate it over to later. And the other thing is that, as far as I can tell, there isn't a way to get XFlight working with a multi-rotor. Well, it probably can be done, but I haven't figured out how to do it. I have found some examples of doing hardware in the loop with Pixhawk and ArduPilot and multi-rotors and XFlight. So I know it can be done. I'm just not sure it can be done with iNav, and that's what I'm playing with today. Okay, so we've got a flight controller with iNav 6 or newer on it, and we've set the mixer up correctly. Next, what we need to do is go to the configuration tab and set up our sensors. And we don't actually need to have all of these sensors because the simulator is going to simulate the data that's fed to the sensors. But we do need to tell the flight controller that the sensors exist, otherwise it'll ignore the data coming from the simulator. We're going to do that in the configuration tab here under sensors and buses. For the accelerometer, you're just going to leave it at whatever it's already set to. Your flight controller has an accelerometer, it's been auto-detected, and it's good to go. For the magnetometer, if it's been auto-detected and you actually have one, leave it alone. If it is set to none, or if it's set to fake, you want to set it to QMC 5883, and then it will work. For barometer, if you have a barometer and it has been auto-detected, leave it alone, otherwise set it to fake. For pitot tube, set it to virtual. Pitot tube gives you airspeed, and that is it for that. You're going to make those settings, and then that data will be fed from the simulator to your flight controller. You also are going to need GPS working. So you're going to need to go to the GPS tab. You're going to enable GPS for navigation and telemetry. You're going to pick any serial port, it doesn't matter, and you're going to save and reboot. And that will be red at first, because you won't be getting any GPS data. You may not even have a GPS wired up to your flight controller. You don't need it. But once you get into the simulator, it will feed that data in. The last thing you're going to need to do is go into your ports tab and get your receiver working, and go into your modes tab and set up your aux modes. You know, this is all being done in the flight controller as if it was a real aircraft. So I've set my aux modes up with arming, angle mode, manual flight mode, etc., etc. And most significantly, I've got loiter and waypoint so I can test that stuff out. Once I've got my mixer set correctly, I'm going to need to disconnect from iNav configurator. When XFlight connects to the flight controller, it's going to do it through this COM port, the same as iNav configurator. So if iNav configurator is connected, then XFlight won't be able to connect. You can still have iNav configurator running in the background. So if you're going back and forth between XFlight and iNav, you don't have to restart it every time, but you do need to disconnect or it won't work. Next, we're going to start XPlane up. And we're going to go to settings, and we need to change the flight models per frame. It defaults to 2, which is the fastest. We need to set that for 10, and the reason for that has something to do with the simulation not being very good with small aircraft. So setting it to 10 makes it better for small aircraft. Then we're going to hit New Flight, and we need to make sure to enable Show Extra Aircraft from Old Versions. And that will allow the, there it is, the iNav Surfwing to show up. Once the map loads, we will see iNav HITL disconnected. And we're going to go to Plugins and Link and Connect to Flight Controller. And when you do that, you should see the flight controller data all there, just as it would be if it was a real flight controller on a real plane. Go to Plugins, iNav HITL STL, and I just want you to see some of the options that are there that affect the interaction between the simulator and the flight controller. Under GPS Fix, you're going to want to set it to 12 satellites, and that will mean that the flight controller will always think it's got 12 satellites of GPS data. Under Compass, that can be set to normal or hardware failure to simulate a failed compass. Just leave it on normal. Attitude should be set to copy from XPlane, which means that the actual orientation of the aircraft is going to be sent from XPlane and not from its actual accelerometer and gyro. There are some OSD options you can play with, some battery-related options. We want that to be set to infinite 3S battery. We can change it to 3 minutes, 10 minutes, or 30 minutes flight time, and it'll run down over time, but we're just going to set it to infinite for now, just so we can play around. Pitot tube set to simulate, that'll give us airspeed, and analog video will cause the analog feed to snow out once you get a certain distance from home. I'm just going to set that to no simulation and have infinite range. Once that's done, we can arm and throttle up, and it doesn't have a hand launch. So if your aircraft doesn't have landing gear, it's a little bit rough to launch, but you just throttle up and get in the air, and away we go. We're flying. Why don't I have throttle? I should have throttle in my OSD. Hold on. There we go. Here we go. So we're flying. For example, I could put it in angle mode, and now it'll auto level like normal. I'll put it in manual mode. My rates, everything it's real. And on top of that, I can flip it to waypoint. And it'll go fly the waypoint mission that I set up. And check this out. If I hit the map option, look at this. Map. I can see the map. Check this out. Plugins. Map. Download waypoints from flight controller. Let me just zoom in here. You can pull. See this? Here are my waypoints. Here's my aircraft. Here's my flight track. You can actually see the aircraft flying its track. Like, you can see exactly what it's going to do. That's so cool. Like, oh, I got my altitude wrong. You can actually see what it's doing. Okay, here we go. We hit waypoint 1. Now we're going to turn towards waypoint 2. How steep is that turn? Oh, I'd like that turn to be steeper. Oh, I'd like the airplane to be flying faster. Notice the auto throttle is only set to 36%. I'd like it to be going faster. You could tweak all that stuff and you can actually see it play out in real life. Never mind, you can just fly for fun. If you want to. Oh no, I'm crashing. That's pretty freaking cool. If you think that's pretty freaking cool and you're happy that I showed you how to do it, then please consider joining my Patreon. I love putting in the work that I put in to make content for you guys. I love the fact that you guys love watching the content, but at the end of the day, us having a little love fest with each other doesn't pay the bills. So if you feel like I have earned your support, it's a tiny amount of money a month, honestly, less than you spend on props probably. If you feel like I'm worth that much, then please join my Patreon. It's linked in the video description below. And if not, I don't, yeah, it's all good. There's lots of people I don't join their Patreon either, and I'm like, probably already skipped this. So I'll just keep making content, and hopefully the day will come when you feel like I've earned it. I didn't do this just for fun. I did this because I wanted to be able to test real waypoint missions with real topography and real satellite map tiles, just because that sounded like a really fun thing to do. I hate the fact that every time I think of some cool thing I could do with waypoints, then I can't actually show it to you guys because the FAA would be all up my butt. So I'm actually working on a tutorial about setting up waypoints in iNav, all the options, and now I'll finally be able to test this stuff out in real life in the simulator and not get in trouble. That video is coming. It's going to be linked down in the video description below. If it's out, I'll put a card on screen as well, and you can check that out. I'll see you there. Happy flying.